Welcome to the Fantasy Golf Bag Podcast, presented by FantasyGolfBag.com, your number one source for the most in-depth PGA Tour analysis in the daily fantasy and sports betting world. Each week, our experts will discuss everything you need to know, from the course preview and key stats to top plays, fades, and strategies. Whether golf betting, grinding out cash games, or playing for a big GPP win, our team has you covered. Let's get after it.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Fantasy Golf Bag Podcast. I am your host, Redkacheek, joined today by Axis here to preview the Rocket Mortgage Classic, the first event of, I'm not even sure how many years they've signed on to do this, but we'll be looking at the Detroit Golf Club. A new stop for the PGA Tour, so certainly interesting trying to dive into the golf course and get some edges for us. Obviously, with no course history for the majority, or for all the field, there's a lot of edge to be gained by looking into this and figuring out what comp courses, what type of players will benefit from the layout and the structure of this golf course. So a lot to get to for this inaugural event, but I'll go ahead and bring in Axis. Axis, man, how's everything going for you?
Going well. Feels good to have a tour stop, even if it is a glorified web event back in Michigan. So, and they've signed on for 4 years at this club, from what I read.
4 years, okay.
So it'll be here at least 4, and then we'll see if they want to move it to a better neighborhood.
Yeah, because you grew up around here, right? Or you grew up in the area.
I've lived in the area for a bit here and there, on and off. Worked kind of by the course. It's a rough area. Detroit's been coming along nicely, but mainly downtown. If you're going, I assume you're familiar with the area anyway. Like, just drive your worst car. Don't bring the nice one. Well,
they're gonna have their courtesy cars are gonna be like BMWs or Mercedes or something, right? That's not good. Maybe this week it's Ford.
Jude was showing me that for the shuttles, they suggested parking at the fairgrounds off 8 Mile and everything. And I was just like, just don't bring the nice car. Like, It's unfortunate. It is what it is. I like what the city's been doing, but it's still Detroit. So, it is funny. I didn't know the exact address of this place, so I looked it up, and I was just like, growing up, I was like, that was a no-go zone for anything. Like,
just scroll right or left a little bit, and there's some areas.
I don't know. I don't mean to talk shit about my own city, but it is what it is, right? But it should be fun. And like I said, I'm just glad it's back in Michigan. I'm going to try to get there Saturday, I'm hoping.
Okay, awesome.
But we'll see. But
That'll be fun, yeah.
I'm ready. I'm excited to watch it. I don't really know much about the course, just like anybody else, so it's intriguing how they're going to attack it. It looks like there could be some scoring here. I know you dug in even deeper than I did, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I did want to talk a bit just because Ches is playing this week. I mean, he played awesome, but the real story for me was, man, did you see Zach Sucher's collapse on Saturday?
I was busy all Saturday, so I didn't get to watch it live, but I was kind of following on my phone because I was so busy. I actually thought it was Sunday, so I thought he was collapsing during the final round. Like, it was just a hot mess in my mind, and I was trying to find live bets. Like, holy crap, I can still get some. And then texted Sky, and I was like, wow, I just had an epiphany. It's only the third round.
Yeah, because we played him at the Canadian Open because I think he was like 6,100 coming off of some top 20s, and obviously didn't play him last week, and he's leading after Friday, goes on Saturday. I think he birdies 4 holes on the front. I mean, he's stretching his lead to like 5. Like, he looked like Ches, how he ended up the day. That's how Zach was after like 9 holes. And then he hits 10, and I think 10, it might have started on 9 actually, but 10 I think he went double bogey, 11 double bogey. I mean, just all of a sudden, just wheels fell off. It was
all it took was one bear off tweet.
Yeah,
that's all it took.
He's got
comparing him to Kim at John Deere, and then just boom.
Dude, it was tough to watch. I mean, man, I just
couldn't
imagine
glad
how
he
sick he
second,
was.
Though.
Yeah, he hung in there.
They were talking about all the FedEx points he needed, and he chipped in on 18, which was all like. And I know we'll get there quickly, but he still rates out decent for me this week.
Yeah, I don't mind.
He didn't win. He didn't really get bumped all that much.
Yeah, I really don't mind going back there. I mean, and then honestly, like my perspective on the field, like I don't think it's that bad. Like I think it certainly drops off like when you get to like the mid sevens, but like just because there's not as many big names, I feel like there's overall a pretty good field.
It is. Like I've been joking about it, but it doesn't have the studs, but it's better than a web event, obviously. Like it still has very much the regular guys plus a little few spring. You get all the new rookies are here again. Like it'll be fun.
Yeah, I think like probably I think there's some guys in the high sixes you can hit, but like once you get to like 66 or 65, then it really falls off. But that's like really not indifferent than a normal PGA Tour event. I think just the big shock factor is seeing guys that are, were 7,800 or 8,200 last week or the last couple weeks, and now they're all of a sudden 9,800, 10,000. Well, not 10,000. Yeah. Hideki's normally 10,000, but we'll say like Ches and Brandt.
What do you want to stomach? Yeah.
Yeah, ugly. So, yeah, let's go ahead and dive in. I'll kind of talk about the course a little bit. I think that's the biggest advantage this week is just trying to predict what type of players we can profile for this event. So I'll go ahead and run through like the basics of the event or of the course. Obviously, there's no course history. There's no prior stats to go off of. So I did a lot of digging on course comps and tried to profile. I would highly encourage anyone that has the time, if they're at work or something like that, if you go on YouTube and type in the course, there's like 2 or 3 generic golf channels, like generic golf YouTube channels that did like course play probably 5 weeks ago, 2 months ago. And it's actually really interesting because you can actually see them play it. You can get an idea. Obviously, when it first came out, I think people thought, this is going to be Bomber's Paradise, which guys are probably going to have to hit driver a decent bit. But when you watch people play it and you actually look at the scorecard, it's a lot tighter and more accurate off the tee type of play than just, I'm just going to bomb it down there and this is going to be a pitch and putt all week. So highly encourage you to do that. For normal PGA Tour events, you can watch prior events or you remember it from last year or the 20 years prior. But this one, obviously, being new, and I've obviously never played the golf course, but seeing it visually on a video, a guy playing it and seeing like how narrow, number 1 or number 2 come in, it gives you a appreciation for what type of players to target this week. So highly encourage you to do that. So Axis.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I went through the card too, similar to you. Like number 4 is 625, a lot of yardage in number 4. The par 3s make up a lot of yardage, but at the same time, with these shorter par 4s, like these guys probably don't want to leave them. I mean, they'll all have a yardage they're going to try to hit to, but
yeah, because I think
even with it narrow, I don't think there'll be too many 200-yard approaches this week, but at the same time, it's been raining here for like 3 straight weeks, so the whatever rough they have, I don't know how they're going to keep it, but it will be luscious.
Yes, it will. Just as an example, so the golf course is going to play 7,300 yards, a par 72. So it's a standard 72. You got 2 par 5s, 2 par 3s on each side. 2 really probably average par 5s on the back, 555, 577. But then 1 on the front that's 635. So depending on how guys approach the par 5s, I think they can get there in 2 for the longer hitters. Most people probably going to play it like a 3-shot hole, but that 635 adds a big chunk of yardage to the scorecard. So one of the big course comps for me is Colonial. If you actually look at their scorecard, so Colonial is a par 70, 7,200 yards. But when you start breaking it down outside of the par 5s and the par 3s, it's nearly identical. So the front 9 at Detroit Golf Club, there are 3 par 4s under 400, and the others are over 450. So but none are over 470. So it's like a really good mix of, under 400 you're going to hit it, 250, 270 off the tee. You're going to have a pitching wedge in, and then the 460s you're going to have to hit driver or 3-wood and probably have 180 or something like that. So it's very similar on the back as well, but I really like the course comp for Colonial, which we'll use for some of our players, or at least for some of my players. But yeah, I see this course being more approaches every week, but I see it less of an off the tee strokes gain stat week and more of a driving accuracy, get it in play. Just like we talked about at Colonial, was that 4 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, something like that. So keep that in mind when you're looking through your players. Guys that tend to spray it are probably not going to be the ones you want this week.
Yeah, kind of a 1/3 off the tee, 2/3 approach if you're making your own little ball striking cocktail.
Yeah, and I do think scoring is going to be low. So like just running through some of the stats that I'm eyeballing is certainly birdies are better. I mix in a little bit of bogey avoidance for the last 10 events, trying to get an idea of guys that aren't making a ton of mistakes. That kind of goes hand in hand with ball striking, and if it doesn't, it at least includes a little bit of scrambling because they're avoiding bogeys. But yeah, off the tee, I weight a little bit. Approach, I weight a decent amount. And then weighted driving accuracy and weighted green regulation that we have in the rolling stats that I used a decent bit over the last 5 and 10 tournaments. So trying to get a feel for guys that are, we say it every week ball striking wise, but I feel like you could have gotten to a trap this week when initial tweets came out, people talking about the golf course, that, oh yeah, they'll just hit driver and have wedges in all day. It looks a lot different when you actually see it in person. And I obviously didn't see it in person, but when you actually start seeing how they're going to play the event, it's not going to be such a just kill it. I like the Colonial course comp quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm looking at pretty well the same as far as the individual stats, the weighted driving accuracy. I broke down some of the approach into just certain ranges that I kind of want to key in. Like I said, I kind of tried to ignore the 200 plus. Outside the par fives, I just don't really see that much from the scorecard. The handful of par threes, but so I tried to whittle out that. Like you said, we don't know much about the course, so I'm kind of going more by just my overall model that I use and trying to probably just be trying to compile some guys that I think are decent value price-wise compared to the rest of this field. Like some guys really got priced up, like you mentioned, Ches at 9.7, Snedeker at 9.9. You don't see that much, but other guys, it feels like they still just kind of left them where you might see them during a regular week. So I think it's going to be interesting builds, but I think I'm going to go more the route of maybe pay down a bit for some of these guys and try to cram in a Hideki or a DJ into each lineup I make, depending on what I do this week.
Yeah, it was really interesting because I try to get an idea. It's certainly, like to your point as far as the lineup construction, obviously weeding out some quote unquote bad plays is always important, but for this week with it being lesser known, I'm not going to be as strict as just counting someone out. It's going to be more around lineup construction. So like if you run so what I wanted to do was run our optimal lineup in our PGA stat model, and no one went. Hideki was the highest price in the top 5 optimal lineups. Like there was just so much value to be had by staying in the mid-range versus paying up for a DJ and then trying to whittle away a mid 6K guy or something like that. So certainly keep that in mind this week. Obviously in GPPs, you can always make a case for, I'm going to pay up here. If DJ wins, I can get lucky if, a $6,400 guy finishes top 20 or something like that. But as far as lineup construction goes, it's really leaning towards a balanced build this week just because the pricing at the high end is so inflated. And that's a perfect reference. Like Ches Reavie after last week, 9,700 in this field is probably well-deserved. But when you got Hideki $500 more, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like if you're showing up to Detroit Golf Club on Thursday and you had to bet, $10,000 on someone in that matchup, Hideki's probably an obvious choice.
Yeah, like you said, Ches deserves to be up there. It's just I think other guys didn't get the full bump that some of people like Ches got. So, like you said, Hideki is $500 more, and he's more than $500 better than Ches Reavie. So it's those type of things I'm going to be trying to weigh. I actually haven't built any lineups yet. I've just been trying to piece together the player pool. So I'm not entirely sure how it's going to fall into place, but most of my player highlighting has been like below 8,500. So
yeah, we have Ches projected for 6 points less than Hideki, and I will say Ches did end up in the second optimal lineup, but I won't be going there. So with that being said, let's go ahead and roll into the players that we're looking at. We'll try to hit the high points in each price range, and then work our way down and see if we have any values. And of course, you can find all these stats at fantasygolfbag.com. You can find the rest of our write-ups. And I know, Axel, I think you're doing a Euro article this week. We obviously have all the Euro stats we started offering a couple weeks ago. And now we got back-to-back Euro events. And I think you'll be doing a course preview or a mini field article, right?
Yeah, it'll be a combination of both. For Valderrama over in Spain. Looking forward to it. Looks like they boosted the Euro contest a little bit. I think they're getting ready for the lead up into the Open with the Irish Open and the Scottish Open coming up as well. So hopefully we see some inflated prizes over there leading up to the Open.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, man. And then, of course, we'll be back. Last week, we did not have a FGB live stream Wednesday night. I was out of town for a golf tournament that did not go so well. But I'll be back this week, and we'll be doing an FGB live stream at 9 p.m. Eastern normal. And that is at twitch.tv/Redkacheek. So you can find that there. And then hopefully we'll do another showdown stream Saturday. I know that went over well for the U.S. Open. Again, I was out of town, so we couldn't go back-to-back, but I know Orange Man was asking about that, so we add that to the docket for Saturday. That's on the list. So let's go ahead and dive in, man. So starting off in the high range, 10K to DJ at 12K. It's pretty easy for me this week. I mean, there's a lot of win equity up here for sure, but I just don't see a reason, at least for me in my lineup construction, to pay up for a DJ, especially on a course that's lesser known. We don't have a ton of data. We don't see... Like, for example, like the RBC Canadian Open the last couple of years. Obviously, this year was a different course. But we've seen, like, DJ just really dominate courses. This could be one of those tracks, but, like, at 12K, on a lesser-known, this is the first time it's being held here. We don't know how he's going to approach it. And he's still the best player in this field by far. I just don't see a need to pay up to that price. So I'm probably just going to lean Hideki. And I will say, these guys all grade out really similarly. So, like, looking over long-term form and short-term form for all my key stats, DJ, I think, rated out third out of these four. But they were all really, really close. It wasn't like it was big gaps. So I'm just going to lean Hideki at 10-2. I'm trying to think about maybe running some extra lineups and GPPs this week and give myself a reason to play some of these other guys, just because they're probably going to be lower owned in the sense of the pricing the way it is. But, I mean, when we're just looking at this field and the pricing at 10K and up, I think Hideki's the obvious play.
Yeah, I'm on board with you. Obviously, DJ rates out the tops in my model, and obviously I'd price him as a favorite over Hideki gambling-wise, but then I don't think it's an $800 difference. So... Again, it's coming to...
No, 1,800.
1,800, yeah, sorry. What did I say, 8?
8.
Yeah. Yeah, $1,800 difference.
800 would be a discussion, actually.
Right? Yeah. 18, no, not so much. So, again, Hideki... And same thing with Ricky. Like, I don't think I can pay $1,000 more, if I'm building a single entry or 3-max. Again... Yeah, it's all falling to Hideki. Everything. His irons have been fine. Off the tee's been fine.
Yeah,
I don't know. If I'm looking at 10K, Hideki's my number one for sure. I don't know what Gary's gonna do coming off his U.S. Open tour. It's hard for me to try to ever speculate though the mindset of golfers. I mean, he could be just fine. So Ricky's price will keep me away from him. And DJ, if I can find some guys in the lower 7Ks that I'm willing, I think it's fine GPP play, but he has to win to pay off that 12K, which more than capable of. He wins plenty of events like this, the Canadian Open, St. Jude. I mean, he's got tons of 20-plus career wins or 20-ish, so wouldn't put it past him to win by 6.
Yeah, that's kind of my fear. That's kind of
But
why I want to build some more
with
$5.
12K, it pretty much has to pay that off. I know golf's a little different than other sports as far as value, points per dollar, yada yada. But no, 12K is a lot to pay up unless you're really strong on some of these lower guys that you're comfortable playing.
Well, he needs to win by 6 shots, and hopefully it's not a birdie fest for the rest of the field too. Like he needs to win by like shooting 22 under and everyone else is bunched up at like 16 or something like that is probably not going to cut it.
Right.
Just because the birdies hold so much value. I was trying to look up real quick before we move past it the driving accuracy numbers that we run our weighted model. I'm trying to see if I find it. Because Hideki over, like, Woodland's an interesting one because we talk about listen driver.
None of these guys. Ricky has the best weighted driving accuracy over the last 10 weeks, but it's still not outstanding for this field.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's still tough. I really want to hear what they have to say with pressers coming up leading into Thursday, and maybe we'll get maybe the rough won't be as big of a penalty as I'm assuming with all this rain. Maybe they cut it. I don't know. Maybe, but I don't know. Up top, it's pretty cut and dry for me. It'll be Hideki.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
I assume many others will land there too, but
yeah, it's just so weird with lineup construction. Starting at 12K, man, you eat into so much of your cap. So, Hideki, consensus vote. We're good there. So let's move down to the 9K. It gets a little bit more dicey, in my opinion. Guys that we're not used to seeing and guys that probably relatively don't deserve to be priced at this range, but got to deal with what we got to deal with. Starting up there, you got Snedeker, Reeve coming off a win, Ryan Moore, Patrick Reed at 9,300, Kevin Kisner, and Billy Horschel. In this range here, Horschel's a guy that's been, I wouldn't say sneaky good, but like when you look through his long-term history, he's been so consistent. And then like starting off the year, his ball striking was just garbage, and he kept holding it together, mainly with his putter. And then over the last 5 or 6 weeks, he's turned it around with his ball striking. He finished 9th at Memorial, 19th at the Charles Schwab, which is a comp course for me this week. 9th at Memorial, 32nd at the U.S. Open. Gained strokes off the tee and approach in all those weeks. I would probably lean to go all the way down to Billy at 9K. Ryan Moore I do like, so I'm probably going to have him in some lineups, but the other guys there, like I'm trying to be somewhat strict in my construction and thought process this week, but I would just I wouldn't say savings, but just drop down to Billy Horschel. He'll probably fit your builds better. You'll feel more comfortable. 9K there. And then Ryan Moore, I do like at 9,500. He'd be the only guy that I would probably pay up over Billy Horschel that's not over 10K.
Yeah, so we are 2 for 2, Drew. Billy Horschel is the only guy I highlighted in the 9K range. Like I said, I think Ches is fairly priced for this field as far as where he deserves to be priced. It's just I think there's better value out there. Looking for underpriced guys, not necessarily adequately priced guys. Ryan Moore also did flip a few switches for me, but not enough to be highlighted. I really don't want much to do with Reed. And then when it came to Horschel Kisner, I just liked a lot more with where Billy's game is at right now. So at 9K, I think that's I would have, in this type of field, the way he's been playing, I would have thought he'd be a little higher. So yeah. All things considered, Billy's the only guy who got highlighted for me in the 9K range, and he's honestly probably the only guy from that range I'm going to play at the moment.
All right. Yeah, I will say, too, like, the Ches at the price, I'm glad he's priced there because it makes an easier decision for me because, like, he hasn't just popped the last 2 weeks. Like, the U.S. Open obviously got on the radar, finished third. Travelers, he won last week by, pretty good margin. But he had a pretty good run prior to that. RBC Heritage 28th, 18th at the Wells Fargo, 14th at the PGA Championship. But then he missed the cut at the comp course that I'm using here, which is Colonial. So, like, if he was 8,700, man, I would have a dilemma this week. But at 9,700, I feel pretty good about using price as my difference maker there. But yeah, I did want to point out, man, he didn't just pop 1 week for those listening. Like, if you look through his longer term, at least 6 weeks or so, say 8 weeks, he's been playing really well for a good while. It just becomes price. Coming off a win, I'm not really that scared to play him again, but it just becomes a line of construction thing, man. 9,700 dropped down to Horschel, another $700 in savings. Now I'm out of the 6K range. I'm the low sevens, and I actually have a decent looking lineup. So it's a very interesting week when it comes to preparing for your lineup construction, trying to kind of balance value with your salary.
Yeah, Ches actually rates out number one in my recent form for the gambling model I throw together. So it's just something I don't know. It's not really fitting, and maybe I'm being blind to someone who's just playing Unreal Golf right now, and it could bite me. It's just I don't know. Made sense to highlight some other of these guys at prices. So
yeah. So you're sticking with Horschel, and then I'll just add Ryan Moore to that list in the 9K just to kind of recap. And I think actually Ryan Moore, real quick, if I look it up, he let's see.
He plays very well at Wyndham, which I've seen people comping to this mainly just due to same architect, but I've seen a lot of people mention that, and there's a nice little Ryan Moore connection there.
Yeah, I mean, even just last week, he gained 4 strokes on approach. So, like, he's actually, in theory, he's actually trending up off of the PGA Championship where he missed the cut, 33rd Memorial, 15 Traveler. So, did want to point that out because I do like Ryan Moore as well as Billy Horschel. So, we'll drop down into the 8K range. Again, not a fantastic range. There's probably a few that are underpriced when you start looking at guys, and that's going to be a recurring theme this week, is talking about pricing. But who are you looking at primarily here in the 8K range to try to target?
Yeah, so I highlighted Kevin Streelman, Rory Sabatini, and Victor Hovland. And I know Hovland doesn't have a ton of rounds, and I didn't use him last week because I figured everybody was going to be all over the shiny new toys. And again, this week, I think I don't know really, honestly, I don't have enough data to really price him accurately in my opinion. So 8,400, I don't know, that could be lower. Like, we might be getting he might be way better than his little sample has shown. So I think I'll take a risk this week because the numbers have been pretty solid for the rounds we have strokes gain data for him. And then same with Streelman and Sabatini. Like, they've just been the irons have been extremely good, especially for Streelman. He's 99th percentile in this field for approach over the last 10 weeks. The around the green game has been solid. The putting's even been, like, all around, just strokes gained total. Streelman and Sabatini have both been playing really well, and I think they're probably priced appropriately. I mean, we've seen my memory's drawn a blank on Sabatini, but I feel like he's been 85 or a little higher during his run. So I don't really think his run of play is quite ended yet. But those are the three I'm really keying in on. I think you could maybe talk me into, like, I know Duffner's irons have been really hot. Kevin Tway popped again last week, although he seems to be playing very well, and I think he played well at Colonial too.
He did. So, like, from the comp course perspective, he did play well. I was going to bring him up because he's a guy I'm going to wait another week on to see where his game's at. Like, he gained 6 strokes putting last week, finished 5th. His irons, his ball striking wasn't bad, but we've seen guys pop for a week and regress back, like, immediately. And, like, with his ball striking numbers, they weren't that much better than they have been, and he's been finishing, 44th, 19th, 77th, 53rd, 36th. Like, I just don't see a ton of upside. If people look at the 5th place last week, they'll be chasing it a bit. So I would prefer to wait on Tway. He did play, I mean, to your point though, he finished 19th at the Colonial a couple weeks ago, month and a half ago, whatever. But I'll just wait.
No, that's fair. I mean,
I'm not eager to play him.
I think you could go a lot of different ways in this range, but the three I'm keying in on will be Streelman, Sabatini, and Hovland.
Yeah.
I mean, it's heavily bias towards the recent form, but even their long-term form numbers are positive. Like, they're not bad golfers. They're just above your average PGA pro, and Hovland probably even has a higher ceiling that we don't quite know what that is yet. So,
yeah, that's a good point too. Like, he's obviously really good. I mean, Wolf's in this field too, I think. I mean, I'm not really afraid to go back to him either. Either of these guys. And to your point, like,
you save about $1,000 on Wolf. He's 7,500.
Yeah,
it's crazy. I mean, it's due to what Hovland's done in his 20 rounds. I have 20 rounds for him in my database, and that's why he's priced higher. I mean, he's low amped at 2 majors, so.
Well, he's obviously good, and
yeah.
Like last week, everyone was talking about, they're going to be too popular, and they weren't. I mean, people, whether they're using an optimizer or they're trying to, go through the field, they'll always lean towards a PGA Tour guy in their handful of lineups than a new guy. Like if you're running 150 maybe, or maybe 20 lineups, or you're just throwing together some random lineup, you'll throw them in there. But most people, I mean, Wolf was sub 10%, I think, and Hovland was around 12, if I'm not mistaken. So there's not an argument in my mind for, he's going to be super popular for either of these guys. And I know that's not what you're saying, but I know that was the thing last week, and that it wasn't true. So don't be afraid to play either of those guys, even though they're new and you might think they're getting hyped up. They're good. I mean, Hovland has proved it. Two majors, I mean, the Masters and the U.S. Open, I mean, that's so impressive.
I mean, again, it's only 20 rounds, but his long-term form is like roughly the same as Reed's has been over 90 rounds, and same as Brandt over 80. So for me anyway, and around Kisner. Again, that's only 20 rounds, but I mean, he hasn't been playing slouch fields for those 20 rounds either. So
no, and kind of one more thing on like the college guys coming in, talking strictly Hovland and Wolf. I know last week I brought up Wolf either on our show or on the Rotor Grinders show, and he won 6 events in college. And I didn't go back and look at the scores, but Hovland was like 20 strokes cumulative or 13 strokes cumulative behind him over the course of the whole season. Like, I think Hovland won once or twice, and you talk about Wolf winning 6 times. For their total strokes, they all played in the same events. Hovland was like 13 strokes worse over the entire season, which is nothing. And now we're starting to see Hovland kind of rise a little bit, getting a little more comfortable early. So I thought that was super interesting. I mean, you look at the wins. We talk about that every week. Don't look at the result. Look at like how they're playing under the surface. And when you talk about a guy that won 6 times and then say, Hovland literally lost to him after 10 events by 13 strokes. Wow, they're a lot closer than it seemed.
Yeah, for sure. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so for me, I'll just kind of wrap a bow around the 8K range. I think Streelman and Sabatini are the 2 go-to plays for me. Streelman continues to play well. Sabatini is doing a lot not doing a lot, but he's been so consistent off the tee, which is going to be critical here. So I don't see him getting in a ton of trouble if he can keep it up. He also finished 6th at the Colonial, again, what I'm using as a comp course. And then for Streelman, he finished 31st there at Colonial, and I think he had a good run there prior years as well, but I didn't go back the last few. So the only one I wanted to mention that you did not hit on, super elevated price, but Joaquin Niemann at 8,900, I'm not afraid to take a stab on. He's right there just below Billy Horschel, so I assume people would lean Horschel over Joaquin Niemann, which I don't blame him for. But yeah, at 8,900, you start looking at his results and kind of his stats and where they're heading for this course. I like Joaquin's chances a decent bit. So 8,900 there, I would eat the little elevated salary. But certainly my preferred plays are Streelman, Sabatini. And I'll add Hovland in there. He'll probably be in my player pool. He's just been playing too good. At 8,400, I still think he's a little cheaper than where he probably should be in this field.
Yeah, and Niemann, I ignored Neiman strictly because his irons never left. Like we played him a lot last year when he made his debut and went on that miscut or top 10 run. It was one or the other, and his irons never really left. His short game, which was never good, got worse somehow. And the last 4 events he's played, he's gained strokes around the green, and he's actually gained putting in 2 of those 5. So something definitely promising. I mean, maybe he found something a little bit, or he got a new coach. I don't know, but he gained around the green in 4 straight events for the first time in his career. So positive signs. I guess you can weight how much you want to put into that noise, but the irons never left, so that shouldn't really be the problem for him. I just couldn't. I'd rather play Billy, like you said, most other people. So could be a good pivot. Yeah.
All right, man. Let's hit the high 7s. We'll say 75 to 7,900. It's just a couple guys that burned people last week and could be a good opportunity to bounce back. Certainly like their chances, but I'll let you lead off here. But I mean, Mr. Charlie Hoffman, dude.
Yeah, I'll be back on Hoffman. He burned a lot of people last week. What was he, 20-ish%? I guess it depends on the GPPs you played, but in the one that's coming to my mind, he was like 21% owned and didn't play that well the first round, and that cost him. But the iron play is still there. Over the last, what did I have? So I was looking at his last 16 rounds. He's put 20% of his approach shots inside of 12 feet. So the opportunities are there. If he can just putt, not even average, just decently bad, like just don't lose 4 strokes like in 2 rounds or whatever it was. I mean, my God. So I'll go back to Charlie at 7.8K. I think he's one of those guys that I talked about earlier in the pod that they boosted prices for other regulars on tour for this field, but Charlie feels like one where, because he missed the cut, we're just going to kind of leave him where he was. And so at 7,800, I'll definitely be rolling the dice on Hoffman again. And Benny Ann at 7,900, he's another very consistent ball striker that just kind of got lost in translation. I don't know. He didn't play well last week again, and he's just sitting there at 7,900. So again, it's another golfer who I think is better than much of this field on a regular basis. So I'll roll the dice on another guy coming off a relatively piss poor week. I don't know what your thoughts are on the upper 7s there. There's a couple lower. Watney and Kang also got highlighted for me. So I think this range you can do a lot with.
Yeah, I was going to point out too, like for the Hoffman, if you actually, obviously we're starting to add a few more new proprietary stats for the fantasy golf bag. You start looking through his numbers at a lower level. Hoffman obviously played pretty bad last week in round 1, but he bounced back and still lost strokes putting on Friday. I think he shot 3 under and still lost about a stroke and a half putting. His irons were pretty solid again. So I think he just had a few bad shots, a few bad holes on Thursday. So I like Charlie Hoffman a good bit here at 7,800. He also finished 13th at the Charles Schwab at Colonial this year. So 63 on Saturday. And I know this isn't a Texas course, but he's always had the Texas narrative. But I do like Charlie Hoffman for a host of reasons. I'm not going to jump off the wagon just off of one miscut by like 2 shots or 3 shots, something like that. Others in that range, I know we talked about Charles Howe. I think he's okay. His shorter term form is not what I'm looking for. I would lean Charlie Hoffman. But then at the higher range there, Ben On, certainly 7,900 for him. Ball striking wise is always good. It's just what putter is he bringing in? He seems to be putting better. And then KH Lee, I'm not afraid to go back to 7,900. There's been like maybe 4 or 5 events this season, and he can't hold anything together. So I guess you can make an argument on the price. But man, he'll come out fired and shoot 64 or something like that on round 1 or round 2, and then just do nothing over the weekend. But I feel like the potential is there, like the upside is there, that if he can just get to a Saturday, back 9 Saturday and get into contention for Sunday, he could potentially pay off because his ball striking, Even if you look at the numbers, it doesn't look like it's jumping off the page, but I've been trying to watch him all year, and it's been pretty impressive. So I don't mind him. It's kind of funny, but both of them are ball striking guys and can't really putt. Talking Ben on and Cage.
This range is full of them. Like,
Yep.
it just, I mean.
Well, I got my favorite. I'll give you my. Well, I wouldn't say my favorite. I think certainly Hoffman's my favorite, but my favorite sneaky-ish play is going to be Mr. Kyle Stanley at 7,700. Talked about him last week. Came in and finished 36 of the Travelers. His irons seem to be trending in the right direction. He's hitting a lot of shots closer than the field. It's just not making putts. And he's kind of like you said, there's a host of bad putters in this range, but Kyle Stanley in this field, on this golf course, he's not the longest hitter. I could see him really popping. I do like Kyle Stanley quite a bit, 7,700, over guys like Luke List, who can tend to spray it. I think maybe people go to him just off the course. Jimmy Walker's a no. But yeah, Kyle Stanley, I don't know if you looked into him any, but I've been trying to follow him, and his iron numbers, his weighted proc stats have been really nice.
I didn't highlight him, but I made an asterisk. He popped for me. I just ran some. I was doing all my gambling stuff first, and I ran some sims, and he popped a little bit in there. So I made a note to dig into that, to either check my numbers to see if they were wrong, or to see if he was worth a shot this week. So I don't have anything conclusive on him yet, but I'm not going to write off Stanley quite yet.
Yeah, I mean, 20% of his approach shots last week inside of 12 feet, 50% inside of 24 feet. Obviously, you look through at guys like Ches. I mean, he's not very far behind him, and Ches, won by a good, healthy margin. So I think on this golf course, when you start talking about accuracy a bit, and he's certainly accurate off the tee. Like, he's not the longest. He's going to be doing it with his driver, trying to stay out of trouble, kind of like a Sabatini in a way. So I do like that comparison there for Kyle Stanley.
Yeah, he made the cut at your comp course down in the Charles Schwab Challenge. Wasn't a great showing, but that's when he was kind of just snapping out of his funk, if you will.
Yeah, he was bad. He was super bad.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't mind taking a dice roll on Stanley.
Cool. Let's any thoughts on Luke List? That'd be the only guy I'll ask you about, and then we'll move past it.
Nope, never crossed the mind. The irons aren't there, and if those aren't there, there's no point in me playing Luke List.
Yeah, he's gaining strokes putting. I guess when your irons get so bad, you got to do something to not lose
his
your
lag.
card.
His lag putting is probably gaining him some strokes on the greens.
Strokes gained off of 60-footers.
Yep.
All right, let's roll down into the low seven. So we'll still include 7,500 on down to 7,000. So any guys here in this mid-low range that you're trying to key in on, it gets a little bit dicey. This would probably be the area where you start to really, you talk about the top range, we're trying to split hairs between a Matsuyama, a Woodland, a Fowler. But then down here, you're splitting hairs between, Zach Sucher coming off of his performance and Max Homa, who's continued to play well. Where do you go?
So I have both of those guys highlighted. Now, I wanted to start with just a narrative, and he actually hasn't been playing bad at all, but Brian Stewart is from Jackson, Michigan, so if you want to put a little star there, I think it might chance to play in the hometown state. So
he played here in college too, this golf course.
Yeah, so
a little bit.
There's just a little narrative street. I normally don't play purely narrative street, but Brian Stewart has also been playing some decent golf, so it's 7,100 viable. You mentioned Homa and Sucher. I will get back on Sucher despite what we saw. We touched on it briefly to start the pod again, but at 7,200, he didn't really get that big of a bump from where he had been, considering how he has been playing. So I'll continue at 7,200 to ride that he didn't get overpriced too much for me to really fear any regression back to his normal self. Troy Merritt is a guy who I highlighted at 7,000. His irons have just continued to be dialed in. So I'll definitely roll back Troy Merritt at 7K again. And after that, it, like you said, it gets a little dicey, but like you see, like Wolf is still viable, I think, at 7,500. He's probably underpriced from where, at some point he will end up.
Yeah.
From everything that's prognosticated. Cam Smith is someone we all like to talk about a lot. Depending on courses, at 7,400, you'd think his talent is a little better than that. But again, it is inconsistent. So there's just, some names down here. Corey Connors, iron. Like, I think you could talk yourself into a few guys down here if you really wanted to. I think HB3 might be a slightly underpriced for this field, but Homa, Suture, Merritt, Stewart are the four I actually highlighted, though, from this range.
Okay. Yeah, I'll hit one at 7,500. I didn't mention it, and it's not Wolf. I think Wolf's fine. There's limited sample size. He's obviously very good, so I don't have any problem with playing Wolf. But Peter Malnati at 7,500 was a guy I missed last week, and a lot of sharp people were on him. You look through his numbers, he's been very good with his irons. I think we talked about him at Memorial or the RBC Canadian Open, something like that. So I do like Peter Malnati again this week. I'm not going to try to miss the train for at least another week there. But then below that, the main guys I'm going to try to target is Max Homa. Obviously playing well, continues to play well. Probably out of this. I mean, he's won on tour this season. He grades out relatively well in my model, certainly compared to the guys around him. So he'll probably be my favorite go-to there. I don't mind Troy Merritt, but it's still a little bit iffy. And then probably the only other one that I would probably touch down here would be Connors. And it's not by a healthy margin, but it seems like he's the only one that probably is playing better than most down here. Yeah,
his irons have been pretty solid all year. He does a lot of damage off the tee, which, again, we're trying to guess how this course is going to play. So we could be wrong, and maybe it does turn out to be a little bit of a bomber's paradise. So if you're going to make multiple GPP lineups, it probably wouldn't hurt to sprinkle in some of those guys who do dominate off the tee.
Yeah. Yeah, it gets a bit tough. I really see that low 7 to the high 6s blend together. So
I don't have many highlighted players beyond this, to be honest.
I just got a couple, so I'll try to hit on
I have two.
The low 7s and the high 6s. So Cameron Tringale, 7K, is another guy. He's still playing pretty well. I'll go back to, I wrote him up last week. Hank Lebioda, 6,900. I don't think this is the greatest golf course for him, but his green and regulation numbers with his driving accuracy are still up there. Like, he's been playing really impressive. He had a bad weekend, or a bad Saturday this week. Otherwise, he was like top 20 or top 15. So I do like Lebioda there. And then below that, there's really not a ton. If you could make a case for like a Bronson Burgoon, but for me, I think I'm going to stop at that high 6K range.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to Straka this week. I think this will be like the third week in a row that he's been a viable play for me. And again, it's all purely due to his iron play, which has been superb. So at 6,900, I'll definitely continue to ride that ball striking game. His short game has been atrocious, so hopefully he can figure something out this week. But at 6,900, I think there's enough there in the irons for me. And then the only other guy who popped for me, and I have to dig in more because he popped in the overall model as well, was Sam Ryder. And I think, again, it's mainly due to the irons. That he's in the 88th percentile in this field in iron play. You can get him at 6,600. So if you're looking to squeeze in a DJ and then don't want to play all $7,300 guys, I think Ryder is one of those guys that you can plug into the lineup. He's absolutely the worst in the field around the green over recent the recent weeks, but not a bad putter either. So it's rare you find a guy, the irons have been pure and the putter's been pretty solid. So
yeah, and he's coming back from injury, so like that was his second event back, I think.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken. So I mean, it was a pretty good performance for being back. No one was playing him, so this would be a good time to catch him still at a lower price.
I mean, even his long-term form rates out pretty well for me over the last 82 rounds. So yeah, I think there's enough there for me at his price to, he's the let me make a DJ lineup and not play all these $7,200 guys. Maybe let me sneak an 8K guy in there too.
Yeah, I know Chip McDaniel's down there at 6,300. I didn't look into him too much, but I was trying to find someone that would allow you to pay up to like a DJ if you want to get a little bit weird with your lineup. The only guy that I was going to mention at 6,400, and that's Josh Teater. Had a little bit of a good performance last week. Gained just under a stroke approach. He lost like 3 strokes off the tee. But at the Charles Schwab, he finished 17th. And again, if you're trying to look at something, he's had 3 straight made cuts. 17th at the Charles Schwab, which is Colonial. Teater in a large field GPP is probably the one guy I would go to down here trying to, if he can finish top 30 or something, that'd be great. I would really like that. But yeah, outside of that, not a ton, man. I don't venture. Most weeks I'll have a few guys I'll try to get down in this range, but this week is not that type. I feel like all the win equity is going to be over 8,500 or maybe 8K, and I'm just going to try to get as many in my lineups without going down this far. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, the weird one to me was when I was going through the numbers was Schenk at 6,600, but it's amazing how he's been pin seeking yet he just hasn't made a cut, or he's finished 6th. Like it's crazy for how many chances he's given himself, and he just still misses cuts and finishes 60th place. Unreal. Because I thought, he could be viable this week. He's turning into one of those guys who the stats always look pretty solid, and then you go look and he's like, well, he doesn't actually finish well though.
Yep. There's a big difference. I mean, some guys will do it with the stats and it'll make your numbers look awful. I know we had that conversation with Svensson last week, and again, another miscut. I mean, he's basically being buoyed by one or two good weeks with his irons, and then after that, you still got to look at the overall game. You can't just go blindly off stats. So
that's why I always mix in long term anyway, because you can get it even with our 10-week sample. If a guy plays just pure 1 week, you can really get weighted by that. Over 22 rounds, if you have 4 outstanding rounds, that'll really carry you. So
yeah,
always gotta check the year long just to make sure what you're seeing is kind of a truer sense of how they're actually playing, and not still heavily weighted on one tournament.
Yep, 100%. Well, I think that'll do it, Axis. I think it's a pretty good breakdown. The course again is going to be new, so try to dive in. Certainly look for those videos on YouTube if you can, just to get an idea and picture these guys playing it and how they're going to just trying to get a profile of who's going to play well here. It was actually kind of fun trying to visualize, predict how the people are going to play this event. And certainly we'll get some more interviews as the week goes on to hear guys' opinion. But for me right now, Colonial will be my main course comp, trying to look at guys with a good mix of driving accuracy with good approach numbers, adding a little off the tee for distance. But yeah, I think this was a pretty good show. I appreciate you joining us. And any final thoughts for these guys, and then I'll run us out of here.
No, not really. Just gonna key in on the overall model, cross the fingers, and try to see how the course plays over. It might be a good week to try to take advantage of some, if you're able to watch, maybe some showdown slates. And the showdown model on Fantasy Golf Bag has been very kind to everybody lately.
It has. So. And we'll do another show Saturday night for Sunday and try to get another big weekend So, of course, you can find that at fantasygolfbag.com. There's a Showdown model, which is premium, but there's also the light version, which is free for everyone. So we'll see how much longer we can keep that going, the free version. But if you don't mind, leave us a rating and a review on iTunes. That always goes a long way. Or YouTube, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit the thumbs up button. I think that's what they say, the cool kids say. But appreciate you guys tuning in to the Fantasy Golf Bag podcast. Check us on Wednesday night for the live stream at twitch.tv/Redkacheek. And we'll be ready to go for this event. I'm looking forward to it. You can find all of our content, these stats that we referred to, the stat model, you can run your own lineups, and of course the Showdown model, all at fantasygolfbag.com. So we'll let you guys go. Have a great week prepping for the Rocket Mortgage Classic. We hope you see some big green screens come Sunday, and we'll catch you later this week. See ya.